There is a shedding. People don't talk about this enough, that when you start putting yourself out there, especially when you start becoming a quote unquote thought leader,
Yeah.
the people that knew you before look at you and think, who the fuck does he think he is? You think you're Gandhi or Martin Luther King, Steve?
Yeah.
Like, come back down here with us.
Right.
You know?
That must have happened to you in a big way.
Yeah, I think definitely. I almost think of my life as being in school, leaving to go to university, dropping out of university, being pretty much alone and having a chance to reinvent myself, and then emerging as who I really was.
Yeah.
And I have no current friends that from school still. Well, no one that I speak to from my school days. And I have no one really even from that university phase. Everybody has been since, because, you know, this is what I'm into. And so it's a new person to resonate with or not resonate with. So
I think that's actually very, very true. I think if you had friends that were super excited for you still at this point and were curious and growing, and they don't have to be monetarily growing. It could be totally different. They could be obsessed with MMA and all they want to do is do jujitsu, but that's their area of expertise. You would respect that and value that, and you guys could stay friends. But what typically happens is when you grow a lot, it's like holding a mirror in front of somebody else and saying all the time, why aren't you doing the things that you can and the things that you could be capable of? And when people see that mirror nonstop, they start to look at you and think, I don't like what I'm looking at. And so I've really had to come to terms with that too. What my path is not perfect. It's not right. I mean, sometimes don't you wish you could just like actually Netflix and chill? Like you didn't want to achieve all the time? I certainly do. I'm addicted to achieving. I love it. I wish I could slow down sometimes.
There's a big difference here, actually, because you said you started on this path at 30.
Yeah.
So maybe the reason I didn't experience it as much is I started at 18. I hadn't built a career and I hadn't built social circles around me when I started to make content and started these businesses and started, you know, talking on the TV about business and whatever else. So I didn't have as much to shed, as much of a built up identity to shed.
Oh, good point.
But I meet people all the time that are, you know, 40, 50, that are thinking about making an identity pivot, that are like trapped by the identity and social circle they've built.
Yeah.
And the expectations that comes with that.
That's a good point. Yeah.
It's harder the bigger the walls you've built in terms of identity and the more established your identity is.
I think that's a really good point. Yeah. I mean, I think I had to get divorced, quit a job, move a city, and change a lot of things that weren't who I felt like I was.
Are you happier now?
Way happier now. Yeah. But, you know, it's a miserable thing leaving another human behind, you know? Like, you know, I don't wish divorce on anybody. I don't like, whenever I meet somebody who's divorced, I always say, I'm sorry and congratulations, because it's kind of both.
Was your decision?
It was my decision. Yeah. We just wanted different lives. You know, he was very happy in a white picket fence country club life, and wanted a couple kids and wanted to stay really locally based and kind of wanted me to not work. And so when I thought about my life, I was like, I want to live all around the world, and I want to build something so big that I can't sleep because I need to create it. And I want to leave a legacy that is not managing director at a private equity firm. And I'm not ready for kids. And I'm not sure I want to have kids with you. And he really wanted me to change. And I'm not sure that we should ever try to change somebody that we're with.
There's going to be thousands of people that have heard you say what you just said and think, fuck, that's me.
Yeah.
I'm in that job with that partner in that city, and I just know I'm unhappy.
Yeah.
I can just feel it. There's this like sense of, you know, there's a signal inside me telling me that I shouldn't be here, and I can hear it. Sometimes I justify it away or I try and drown it out, but I know. What would you whisper to that person? What would have been helpful words to this Codie at 36 to whisper to that Codie at 29?
2 words my dad said to me, which is exit tax. So when I left, it was expensive, and both physically and emotionally. And I told my dad about it, and he said, there's always an exit tax to freedom. And that stuck with me because I was like, oh, this is just a toll. It's just a payment. But once it gets paid, what's on the other side? That word freedom. And one thing that really helped me actually when I was going through this, which all this is funny because I don't ever talk about this stuff, but I got a little place. Like I had like the big house, all the stuff, whatever before. And I got this little tiny townhouse right afterwards. Actually, at one point, like I couldn't get into my bank accounts and stuff. And so I didn't have much, but I got this tiny little townhouse that I rented. And that tiny townhouse, nesting in a place that was just my own, that felt really safe, was one of the weirdest unlocks that I've ever had. I now think about it as the power of place. If you can just have somewhere else that you go to that is just yours, that's my biggest recommendation for people that go through, let's say, a divorce or a really tumultuous, change in partner, is there's something about like a glass of, I would have like a little glass of wine or a cup of tea in this tiny little townhouse, but it was mine. It was like nobody else's. I didn't have to share it. I didn't have to compromise. I could just be me. And from there, I could sort of recreate again. And I've heard that now from many, many, many women, at least, who have been divorced, that like that next little tiny place is really important. And I think if I could do it again, I'd go back and buy that place, and maybe I'll buy a few and I'd give it to women, like, or men, right after they get out of their thing, because it's almost like you need to stand on your own 2 feet again. You forget how to. So I would just remember there's an exit tax to freedom. And then on the other side, I like to say, like, I don't think you shouldn't strive for divorce. I think marriage is tough and relationships are tough. And there's a huge benefit to working through things with one human for life. I take that very seriously. But if you are in fact in something that is unhealthy and that you should not be in, realizing that the other side is so much better than I ever could have imagined. I mean, I would not have the life that I live right now, which is a pretty fucking great life, if I had stayed on the side of easy. And now, when I told my mom, she like cried for days and, questioned it and, was like, how are you going to do this? And now she's the opposite. She's like, yeah, it was such the right decision. I'm so happy for you. And will say things to me like, you were so brave, which is weird for me to say out loud, but that you did that, because most people would stay. So that's what I would say. There's definitely freedom on the other side.